Good evening, friends. It's Roger, and I hope you are all doing well. Welcome to our Saturday night watch party of Mahler's Symphony No. 5. As many of my friends know, Mahler is a composer that is very close to my heart. Conducting Mahler is analogous, I can imagine, to climbing Mount Everest. It is extremely difficult and taxing on any conductor, as well as the musicians of the orchestra. Yet there is a great deal of joy when performing a Mahler symphony. I think as an audience member, I find that audiences connect well with the music of Mahler. There is a great deal of emotion in all of his symphonies, everything from tragedy to triumph, joy, loss, humor. There is something for everyone in this music. I'll be conducting my opening concert in September with the Evansville Philharmonic in a performance of Mahler's First Symphony, which is the first Mahler symphony that I ever conducted. I thought it would be appropriate tonight to focus on the music of Mahler and watch a performance of the Fifth Symphony, which is the first Mahler symphony that I ever heard, and this was during my college years. So I'm really looking forward to embarking on this journey with all of you tonight, and I just wanted to say hi to all my friends and colleagues in Evansville, New Hampshire, Santa Monica, Orange County, and Lake George. I hope you are all doing well and that you are safe. There's a quote that I wanted to share with you that is a very famous quote by Mahler. He said, "A symphony should be like the world. It must contain everything." And Mahler certainly reaches for the entire emotional spectrum in his music, especially in the Fifth Symphony. Now, Mahler's Fifth Symphony shares certain characteristics that appear in all of his music. The first is the use of an extremely large orchestra. In the Fifth Symphony, he writes for an orchestra consisting of 4 flutes, 3 oboes, 3 clarinets, 3 bassoons, 6 French horns, 4 trumpets, 3 trombones, 1 tuba, and plenty of percussion and strings. Mahler often stretches the limits of these instruments in terms of their range, so it is extremely difficult music to perform. Not only that, Mahler gives a number of solos to different woodwind and brass instruments, and the first movement of Mahler 5 is practically a concerto for trumpet. The second characteristic is Mahler's use of tonality or harmony. Mahler stretches traditional tonality to its limits. And this, of course, was influential in the music of Arnold Schoenberg and Alban Berg in the years to come. The third characteristic is Mahler's use of form or formal variety. The Fifth Symphony is casted in 5 movements, 3 parts to be exact. The first 2 movements consist of part 1, the third movement is part 2, and the last 2 movements consist of part 3. This was somewhat unusual to have a symphony in parts. So here in the Fifth Symphony, Mahler takes advantage of this. Now, what is really quite unusual about the Fifth Symphony is Mahler's use of counterpoint. While he was composing the Fifth Symphony during the summers of 1901 and 1902, Mahler religiously studied the works of J.S. Bach. Now, Bach was a master of counterpoint, and you could hear this influence in the Fifth Symphony, specifically in the last movement, where Mahler writes a very intricate fugue. This symphony is longer than an hour of music. It's quite long, anywhere from 65 to 75 minutes of music, depending on the conductor. There are a number of musical styles you are going to hear and techniques. You're going to hear marches, fugues, Austrian Ländlers, waltzes, and even different sorts of chorales throughout the symphony. The piece begins with what many would consider an ending. It begins with a funeral march played by the solo trumpet. And as a trumpet player, it's one of the most nerve-wracking solos in the repertoire because it begins with just the trumpet playing. The other thing is that the first 2 movements are very dark and tragic in character. There is no sense of joy or positivity in this music. Now, the third movement begins light as air, but ends in chaos. The fourth movement is a love letter to Alma, his wife. And the fifth movement is joyous, triumphant. It is the complete opposite of the first two movements in particular. And I think many of you will recognize the fourth movement, which is called the Adagietto, which often is performed as a standalone piece on its own by orchestras. The Fifth Symphony is a wonderful journey of transformation, going from darkness to light or tragedy to triumph. And you hear this in the music. It's a remarkable journey. Tonight's performance is going to be performed by the New York Philharmonic, conducted by their music director, Jaap van Zweden. It's a fantastic performance from earlier this year. And as a conductor, I've had the privilege of seeing the Fifth Symphony performed by a number of wonderful Mahler conductors over the years, most recently with the San Francisco Symphony and Michael Tilson Thomas. I will be in the comments section tonight, as always, answering your questions, providing live commentary. So if you have any thoughts or questions about the music, about conducting this piece, please feel free to ask. I hope you're all doing well once again, and I can't wait to go on this journey with all of you tonight. So I hope you're well, healthy, and I look forward to seeing you in the chat. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.